This week on ANN, Adventist health officials are urged to share the health message to a deteriorating world.
A preview of the 2015 General Conference session in the U.S. state of Texas.
And the LNG White Estate opens a branch in the Southeast Asian region.
These stories and more coming up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Adventist health officials were challenged at a health conference this week to share its health message with the entire world. The second global conference on health and lifestyle in Geneva, Switzerland, set the stage for Adventists to motivate each other to spread their comprehensive health ministry worldwide. Adventist World Church President Ted Wilson urged leaders to share the health message and to incorporate healthy choices in their own lives. He also stressed how the Adventist lifestyle can lead people to the gospel. The focus of the conference was non-communicable diseases, which cannot be transmitted from person to person, but are a result of poor diet, tobacco, alcohol, and a lack of exercise. Anselm Hennis, the director of the Department of Non-Communicable Diseases and Mental Health at Pan American Health Organization, said he was impressed with the outreach, advocacy, and mission of the Adventist Church. Hennis also urged Adventists to share their health expertise as the world faces deteriorating global health, particularly among families who have low and medium incomes. The main goal of the conference was to lay the groundwork for the creation of community health centers in every Adventist church worldwide. Attendees received information to help implement wellness programs for their local churches.
This time next year, ANN will be bringing you live updates from the 2015 General Conference session in San Antonio, Texas. The 10-day meeting will be held at the Alamo Dome and the adjacent Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. Session is the highest governing body of the church and has been held every 5 years since 1970. Nearly 2,600 delegates will vote on policy items, authorize changes to the General Conference Constitution, and appoint church officers. It also serves as a revival event, reunion of friends and family, and a trade show of ministries. The theme for the session is Arise, Shine, Jesus is Coming. For more information about session, visit 2015.gcsession.org and be sure to follow the social media hashtag GC2015 for exclusive photos and stories.
In preparation for 2015 session, an Adventist organization is gearing up to provide free medical and dental services in San Antonio. Big City Benevolence will host San Antonio Pathway to Health, where thousands are expected to be treated April 8 through 10. Organizers of the health fair are currently seeking volunteers. If you are a medical or dental professional and are interested in volunteering your skills, please visit bigcitybenevolence.org and click on Get Involved.
An Adventist Institute in the Philippines is now home to the second branch of the LNG White Estate outside of the United States. The inauguration of the newest branch took place last month at the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies. Representatives from the headquarters of the White Estate, including the director Jim Nix, were in attendance for the ceremony. What was once a research center for the writings of the denomination's co-founder will now expand its function to establish mini research centers, develop portable exhibits, and provide fun activities for churches.
Adventists in Colombia brought creation to life last week during an outreach exhibit on wheels. Church members from the city of Cucuta created a creation caravan with floats that illustrated the days of creation. Participants also wore T-shirts with the message, "Sabbath is my day," and passed out flyers to invite onlookers to an evangelistic series. The caravan passed through one of Colombia's most populated cities. Organizers said the caravan was an opportunity for church members to come together and testify about biblical truths and highlight the Sabbath as a day of hope.
Adventists in the South Pacific Solomon Islands recently commemorated the 100th anniversary of the arrival of Adventist missionaries. Record in Focus sent this report.
More than 2,000 people gathered at Vero Harbour, New Georgia, where English missionary G.F. Jones and his wife established the first permanent church base in 1914. Solomon Islands Prime Minister Darcy Lillo officially opened the celebrations, noting that the Adventist Church now operates the nation's largest private education system, as well as a hospital and a network of clinics. A number of past missionaries and their descendants attended the centenary, and a delegation from Papua New Guinea gave thanks for the evangelistic zeal that motivated Solomon Island believers to bring the gospel to PNG as well.
For 34 years, librarians from Adventist entities have met annually for a professional development conference. This year's Association of Seventh-day Adventist Librarians conference was held at the Adventist World Headquarters for the first time. 50 people attended the conference this week with representation from 12 countries. This year's theme was Adventist Archives. David Trim, Director of Archive Statistics and Research for the General Conference, shared the goals of the conference.
There's two outcomes. One is to share the latest information about what is happening with Adventist archives so that we can share our good practice, share trials and travels as well, so that we can improve the way we do things. Ellen White said she was shown in vision that the past experiences of God's people are not to be counted as dead facts. So what's in the archives is live material for us today, so we need to take care of it as well as possible. But the second outcome, we have a very particular hope, is that we see steps made with the Adventist Digital Library project, which will be making millions of pages of historical and rare content, Ellen White's writings, but many other writings as well, published, unpublished things that at the moment you can only find in just a few libraries, to make those available to every church member so that we can enhance a strong sense of Adventist identity, which we believe is an important element in keeping the church true to its prophetic mission.
Adventist Humanitarians are continuing their work in Zimbabwe to address the factors that lead to high mortality rates among infants and mothers. Volunteers from ADRA Zimbabwe are seeking to provide access to maternal health care by building 4 clinics in the northern part of the nation. The clinics will offer health care to mothers 2 weeks before delivery and will provide emergency medical services to mothers with complicated deliveries. The clinics will also offer health education to women, men, and children of the community.
And finally in the news this week, students from Walla University are seeking to raise $100,000 for an orphanage in Uganda. Walla University sent this report.
At Walla University, we have chosen to help children who have nothing. Our goal is to provide the basic necessity, a loving home. As we focus on the needs of children in Uganda, we invite you to join us in our commitment to build a home.
This year, we are partnering with the Adventist Intercollegiate Association to build an orphanage in Kasese, Uganda, alongside the organization Chrysalis. Chrysalis currently supports 26 children in a rented home, and the space is tight. There's only enough space in the building for the girls, so the boys live in outdoor quarters, and there are beds in what should be the kitchen, so the children and caretakers cook outside.
Right now we cook outside, as you can see our kitchen. And sometimes when it is not raining, because we do not have enough living room for children to eat, they eat outside here under these trees.
They live each day with uncertainty. Should their landlord decide to not renew their lease, they will have nowhere to live.
Chrysalis owns 2.5 acres of land and dreams of owning their own home, but has not had the financial means. We are determined to help build this home. We're working with architects and caretakers to design the first home in a way that is sensitive for both the culture and the age of the children. We dream of seeing multiple family homes with permanent house parents, providing the children with a stable, natural home environment.
Our goal is to raise $100,000 for the first phase of this project. All fundraising efforts are sponsored by the Associated Students of Walla University, allowing 100% of donations to go directly toward the orphan children in Uganda. The Chrysalis Donor Network has then agreed to match us dollar for dollar, doubling our gift.
This project offers opportunity for long-term involvement and support. Through the generous gifts that Christ gives us, we hope to generously give to the children in Uganda. We are excited to see the difference it can make, and we invite you to join with us as we build this home.
I'm Asnath Andama, the manager of Chrysalis Home. I take this time to thank the students of Walla for the kindness, for the loving, and the care they are showing us for wanting to build us a house.
Coming up, find out what's in the latest edition of Mission 360 magazine.
Peter and John were called in by the chief priests and elders about their preaching. They tried to defend their actions, but the leaders were very hard on them. They were commanded not to speak or teach in the name of Jesus. After further threats, they let them go. Peter and John went back to their own people and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said.
When we heard all this, we immediately raised our voices in prayer to God. The entire group prayed for Peter and John. We prayed for God to give boldness to these two humble servants. Such intense prayer I had not experienced for a long time. After we had prayed, suddenly, the whole place was shaken.
People were filled with the Holy Spirit, and Peter and John went out and gave witness with great power and grace. They witnessed throughout the land about the resurrection of their Savior.
Welcome back. For this month's Mission 360 feature, Lori Falvo shares a preview of stories that honor women in service.
Our summer issue of Mission 360 honors women in mission service with a fun and inspiring collection of stories. The women, young and old, are from around the world and from different walks of life. They're missionaries, global mission pioneers, and volunteers. They're sisters, wives, and friends, and they have all let God use them to do or to discover some pretty amazing things. If you want a good laugh, read Charlene Hayton's experience as a paparazzi imposter when the president of Malawi comes to visit. If you like to cook, check out the Malacca Sisters recipes from Egypt. The story about Tatiana going hungry so that she could buy her own Bible is very touching, and you won't want to miss the surprising things Amy learned and lessons from a prostitute. This special issue will be available the 1st of August. You can read Mission 360 online or download a free app at mission360mag.org.
For this month's ADRA report, Thierry Van Bignoots shares how ADRA is working to raise $1 million to help address the famine crisis in South Sudan.
By the end of 2014, 3.8 million people in South Sudan will be at risk of starvation and disease. 1.5 million will be displaced or will have to flee the country to escape the violence. As of July 1st, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees announced that funding to World Food Programme has been cut due to the global financial crisis. Now, when it is needed most. This means that food rations for close to 800,000 refugees in Africa have been shrunk, some by as much as 60%. We need to take action now. The rainy season has already started in South Sudan. And while we have reached about 13,000 internally displaced people with emergency food, there are almost the same amount who are cut off due to the awful travel conditions from the rain. Join ADRA in raising $1 million to care for those suffering in this famine crisis. $1 million may sound like a lot of money, but the current humanitarian response is no longer meeting the desperate needs of these people. We must do more, and we must do it now, before so many lives are lost. Make your contribution now and share ADRA's urgent message of need with your friends, family, and church. Please also continue to pray for the internally displaced people and refugees in South Sudan. Visit adra.org/Refugee Day to find out more about how you can help. Thank you.
Is most of your day spent sitting down? If so, you may have sitting disease. The General Conference Communication Department shares how this disease can affect your health and ways you can get out of your seat, even at work.
Do you have sitting disease?
I don't know.
Do you sit all day?
Yes.
Are you known to your friends as a sitaholic?
Yes.
Do you sit all day at work, then get home and sit even more?
I do.
Data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination shows that more than half of people sit at least 6 hours a day. This sitting time has been linked to metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and a whole slew of other problems. If you've been sitting for more than an hour, you've been sitting too long.
We've got to get up.
By cutting your sitting time in half, you can increase your life expectancy by up to 2 years. Find ways you can stand more during your day. Pace when walking on your phone. Have walk and talk meetings. Set an alarm to remind you to walk every hour. Stand up and start living longer today.
Does your church have a plan to protect itself from crime? Adventist Risk Management sent tips to help identify vulnerabilities and make it difficult for criminals to break into your church property.
If you have ever had your home or church broken into, you know that crime extends beyond damages or missing objects. Theft can also equal a loss of time, productivity, and even your sense of personal safety. Have you ever thought about it? What is your church's plan to protect against crime? The easiest way is to make a habit of safety. Evaluate your church for weak spots. Are side doors and windows secure, or are they vulnerable to break-ins? Do you lock the door between the rooms? You have to think like a criminal. Walk around the outside of your church. Is there a computer in plain view? Are there items of value in the hallways? Do you keep the church instruments and electronics in a safe place that is locked? Keeping things out of sight can make your church less of a target. Harden your church. That means making it difficult to break into by adding things like deadbolts and double-paned windows. Install motion sensor lights, especially in areas where there is little light. Install a security alarm system. Also consider installing security cameras. It's your church. God entrusted it to you, so you must be a good steward of the church and its assets.
Up next, your monthly feature from Youth Ministries.
I love learning about my ancestors. It makes me feel like I have a place in history. And I always tell my family, the more you learn about your past, the more you understand the present. But the past doesn't have all the answers, especially about the future. There's so much uncertainty and so much fear in the world today. Which is why I'm so happy that I found something that brings together my past, my present, and my future. I know that no matter what happens, there is a plan. And this gives me hope.
Welcome back. Dr. Jawan Moon sent this report from Youth Ministries.
In the world, there are 113 Adventist colleges and universities. However, as large as it sounds, this number is not much. For example, Canada has more public universities than all the tertiary Adventist institutions combined. In the US alone, there are 4,700 degree-granting post-secondary institutions. There are more than 22 million students attending those campuses in North America, and 22 million is the population of 7 major cities in US and Canada combined. 80% of Adventist students attend public campuses where their faith and identity are challenged. In fact, more than half of Adventist youth leave the church before they become young adults. It's during this time that their faith is tested and their Adventist identity challenged. Often many have an identity crisis, resulting in them abandoning their own identity. I would like to introduce the GC Public Campus Ministries to be known as a process of equipping and empowering students to become campus missionaries by intentionally mentoring and discipling them. I challenge Adventist students to be missionaries on their campuses rather than becoming mission fields in need of a missionary. I ask you to visit followmeadventist.org and register your campus ministry today. Join the special Adventist movement in following Jesus to become like him and be missionaries for Christ on your campuses. 1 Corinthians 11:1 reads, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ."
For this month's Dialogue segment, Rafael Batista, a librarian and historian from the Adventist Theological School in Florence, Italy, shared an Adventist perspective of the recent European Union elections.
As a European Christian teacher, How do you regard the results of the recent elections in Europe?
Thank you for the question, Roberto, because for me it's very important to point out the fact that in Europe we have we have found out that once again we have a polarization of the result of the political struggle. The results are that the EPP had the 29% of the vote, and the SD had the 25.17% of the vote. The two parties represent the two souls of Europe. On one hand, we have a conservative party, a Christian Catholic party. On the other hand, we have a progressive, liberal, leftist party. That means that in Europe we have two routes, not just a single route, as some claim to be. And I am really convinced of this fact. We have, on one hand, a solid Christian heritage and legacy. On the other hand, we have a strong part of the public opinion still convinced about a lay culture, secular culture, a secular politic and policy.
Now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, the organization of the first Adventist church in Serbia.
This week in Adventist history was a week of beginnings for the church in several regions and countries around the world. On July 6 in 1888, the first evangelistic meetings were held in what became, a year later, the U.S. state of Montana. Conducted by O.A. Johnson, the meetings were so successful that by November there were 26 Sabbath keepers who organized the first Adventist church in Montana. On July 7 in 1934, a Filipino missionary, J.O. Batista, arrived in Palau. He was the first Adventist missionary to the western half of the Caroline Islands, which were then a Japanese colony. 14 years later, in the Gilbert Islands, the first Seventh-day Adventist Sabbath school was organized on the small island of Abemama on July 10, 1948. The Gilberts were then a British colony, but today are the Republic of Kiribati. On July 12, in 1905, the first Seventh-day Adventist church in Serbia was organized in the town of Kumane. The first elder of the church was Lazar Eremits, a peasant who had read a report in a German newspaper about an Adventist baker who closed his shop on Sabbath. Eremits persistently wrote letters to Protestant leaders around Europe, trying to find out more until providentially he was put in touch with missionary J.F. Hunegart, the leader of Adventist work in Hungary. Hunegart traveled to Kumane and after Bible studies baptized 8 people who became the first Adventist members in Serbia. That was this week in Adventist history.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, join our global conversation on Facebook and Twitter. You can connect with other Adventists worldwide and find links to more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News or Twitter/Adventist Church.
Our good news for this week comes from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. The passage says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for more daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.